Thanks for tuning in to a Clemson Tigers football preview edition here on the Our Lads Football Network, Our Lads Football YouTube channel. Whenever we talk about the Clemson Tigers, Phil Kornblut joins us. How's it going, Phil?
Doing fine. Just wrapped up high school championships here in South Carolina. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, had 6 state championship games. Saw some really good players. And now we get ready for All-Star Week with the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, both on Saturday. I believe it. Maybe the first time ever that we've had that because of the extra week the high school season had to use this year because of the hurricane pushing everything around. So we got both games going to take place on Saturday, one in Myrtle Beach and one in Spartanburg.
And then, of course, the big one on Saturday. As far as
college football, that's right.
Just a little college football game.
I'd be in Austin. I would be in Austin, but I've got to do the All-Star game in Myrtle Beach, something we do on our network. So, yeah, I got one of my guys going. Matt Smith will be covering the Tigers for us.
What time are the games, the high school games?
High school games are at 12, and Shrine Bowl is kicking off at, is it 1 or 2?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to watch the game.
Yeah. We'll be done by 3. We sign off at 3. So plenty of time to watch it.
All right. Last time we talked about how Clemson had not at that point been able to put it all together. Looked like they came close against South Carolina. And then at the end, just didn't work out. So get the second life, win, and they're in the playoffs, lose, and their season's done. They take a big lead over SMU. Huge lead early. Couldn't have opened the game any better. And then all of a sudden, they're hanging on for dear life. SMU finally ties the score, and then boom, big kickoff return, sets up the game-winning 56-yard field goal, and Clemson is in. So let's talk. And by the way, you did, again, full disclosure, you did not believe Clemson based on what you saw all season. They were going to be able to put it together and beat SMU. But they did. Statistically speaking, though, it's a little bit of a different story. You look at the stats and you go, well, okay, yeah, who was the better team? Because SMU seemed to move the ball pretty effectively. So I have to ask you, how much has your mind changed now that Clemson's in regarding their ability to hopefully keep getting better? If you believe they did take a step in the ACC championship game.
Well, historically, when you discount Clemson, that's when they surprise you and turn around and do something that you did not expect. Now, they didn't play a complete game. Obviously, they were leading big going into the fourth quarter, and they got dominated in the fourth quarter, and they got caught in the fourth quarter. And it just took a great kickoff return and an excellent throw and catch and a 56-yard field goal to win the game and avoid overtime. Boom. Yeah. Yes. Boom, boom, boom. Exactly how they did it. So, hey, can't take it away from them. They got it done. They produced turnovers early on that helped them, of course, build that early lead. Klubnik, I thought, was, for the most part, really, really good. He got off to a very hot start, throwing the ball. Then he went through a little bit of a cold stretch, and then he got it going again. I think Clemson's got 4 very dangerous receivers. I think their 4 receiver package that they rely on the most should give Texas something to deal with in their secondary. But here's the issue with Clemson right now as they prepare for this game. Now, they've gotten healthy on the offensive line. They've gotten everybody back. So it's the running back situation because Phil Maffa is playing with a torn muscle in his labrum. Am I saying that right? Not a torn labrum, a torn muscle in his labrum. I think that's the correct terminology. He's got an issue in his shoulder. It's been hurting him for a while. So he's not able, even though he's just playing on guts and heart and legs, I mean, he's not able to really stick it up in there and break tackles like he ordinarily would. Then, of course, during the game, they lose the backup on the kickoff return of the second half, Haynes.
Okay.
And they haven't announced anything, but it certainly looked like a bad knee injury. And we'll find out tomorrow when Dabo Swinney meets with the media. And so he's out. So, I mean, the point is they're very thin now in the running back situation. They've sort of gotten to where their running game is Klubnik. Predetermined calls for Klubnik or Klubnik scrambling out of the pocket and making something on a pass play. That has sort of become their running attack as of right now. We'll see what they unveil on Saturday. So from that standpoint, they're hurting.
Yep.
I think if you're Texas, your defensive game plan will be to probably run a defense where they've got like an umbrella coverage in the secondary. Don't let these guys get deep on you. That's what Clemson did against SMU. They hit a bunch of big balls deep. And those, like I said, those receivers are capable of doing that. And you throw Brenningstool in there as well, who was exceptional against SMU. So 4 receivers who can really hurt you. So defending the pass will be key for Texas.
Yeah.
And now Texas has got some issues as well.
Yes.
Quarterback's got a high ankle sprain. So don't know if Ewers is going to be the guy or Manning. Manning might be, who knows? With his running ability and Clemson's issues stopping a running quarterback, Arch Manning could become a major factor. They're starting left tackle, the Lombardi Award winner, Banks. He's dealing with an injury. So they've got some questions there as well as they prepare for this game. So we'll see what happens there. But, Clemson, they're going in as a double-digit underdog. So here we go. When you discount Clemson, that's sort of when they find a way and kind of surprise you. Clemson's defense against SMU, like TJ Parker right now, probably playing as well as any defensive end in the country. I mean, he's coming off the edge, and he is almost unblockable coming off the edge right now. So you got to keep an eye on him from a defensive standpoint. Sammy Brown had 14 tackles, I think, in the
Yes.
game against SMU. You got to keep him on the field now. I think he's earned his playing time. 3 linebacker set, and prepare for. They've got to prepare for both Ewers and Manning. I would imagine in practice this week, not knowing for sure who's going to play the quarterback spot. But if I were a betting man this time around, I would certainly take the 11 points. I think this will be a closer game than the 11 based on, what we have to work with in front of us right now.
Yeah. Also with Ewers, the thing that you notice, and I think we've noticed this all season, something's wrong with his shoulder. He has there's no zip on the ball, and he has a strong arm. So whether or not, look, you want to be able to step into the ball and all that, and I get it, but it can't just be his ankle. Maybe that was just something that came up recently. And that's why they're saying that. But the fact is that something's off there, and maybe they could take advantage of it. Because you would believe if the script was there for Clemson to win this football game, it has to be the same script that we saw in the championship game, which is really what you've seen all season: win the turnover battle. You must win the turnover battle, not 1-0, at least by 2. Got to get a couple of more on your side. You just need it. Texas is a better team. And that's how Clemson has produced this season, and how they're going to have to produce again in this one. And look, Ewers is susceptible. He threw a couple of interceptions in the championship game. He's not having a great season. So, I would think that's how you win the football game. And if the game is over and Clemson loses, chances are they will have not won the turnover battle.
Yeah. Yep. That was key against SMU. Now running on Clemson too is still not an easy thing. You talk about that. That's still not an easy thing to do. SMU was able to have some success running the football. Brashard Smith, I think I'm right. Brashard Smith,
Yes.
running back. Man, he's got some get up and go. And of course, the quarterback, very, very difficult. Very difficult. But still, Clemson is pretty formidable, generally speaking, up front against the run. So, if they can stymie the run, kind of keep that in check, and then whatever they decide to do in the secondary against the passing game. Now, I know Texas has got some excellent receivers. That should be an interesting matchup as well. I think, wouldn't say Clemson's going to go in there and win.
Sure.
However, I think Texas is vulnerable based on what we saw their 2 losses against Georgia. Now, is Clemson as good as Georgia? Well, I mean, Georgia defensively was able to keep Texas in check in both of those games, especially, in Austin and also in Atlanta. So
What
relatively in
happened in
check.
that first game? What happened in the opening game of the season, which, tell you the truth, I mean, we all thought, oh, here comes Georgia again. They're going to be this great team, this juggernaut. And that actually ended up being one of their best games of the season. Just, as far as the score and the domination, they have had a lot of close games this year against teams they do not normally have close games against. What happened in that game?
You're talking about from a Clemson standpoint?
Yeah. What was it that was it just first game of the season? What was it?
Well, I think that that was a close game at halftime. It was like a 3-0 game. I think it was like a 3-0 game at half. It was, Clemson's defense stood up in the first half, but then Georgia came out in the second half. As I recall, it's been a long time ago. As I recall, they hit them with a couple of big plays. Remember, a couple of passing plays, maybe a couple of touchdown passes. And then offensively, Georgia pretty much snuffed out the Clemson running game, and Klubnik did not have a good day throwing the ball, and they kept him in check when he tried to scramble. So really, Georgia's defense, as I best recall, without looking at any stats,
Sure.
Georgia's defense pretty much dominated Clemson's offense.
Yeah.
And then in the second half, Clemson's defense just sort of wilted as, Georgia, they got the running game going with that freshman running back. Came in there, gave him a big pop, a lot of speed. Can't remember his name, but I remember him coming in and getting it going in the second half. I remember a touchdown pass to one of their receivers, a transfer from Vanderbilt, I think it was. So they just got it going in the second half and left Clemson in their wake. And offensively, Clemson couldn't really get anything going.
By the way, that running back was Frazier.
Yeah,
Georgia.
Yeah, that's it.
He had a big game, and it was 6-0 at halftime. So you were close.
Yeah.
So okay. So then what does Clemson, so what did they do defensively? Give me some specific players. You mentioned a couple, you mentioned Parker and Brown. How about the secondary? Because again, if we think Clemson will, because I do think that SMU's number one running back is more talented than Texas's number one running back. Mm-hmm. So I think Clemson should be okay there. This game really should come down to the quarterback position and the receivers and which defense can be able to stop at the pass rush and interceptions and things of that nature. So who we should be looking out for in the secondary from Clemson, who you thought may have also played a pretty good game in the ACC championship game, and who you think you would point to as this is a guy that if we're going to win this game, he's the guy that's going to be the player of the game in the secondary.
Well, you probably start with Avion Terrell. He usually draws the best assignment on the other side, and he's, as advertised, he's really, really good. He's excellent in man coverage. So, however they decide to use him, one side of the field, flip-flop him against the best receiver, we'll have to wait and see what they come up with. So in the deep secondary, of course, you got Khalil Barnes back there. You got R.J. Mickens back there, and those are veterans. So, they're good in the secondary. Clemson's always been good in the secondary. Veteran group, except for the one freshman at corner, but he's played a lot of snaps now, so he's sort of beyond that freshman identification at this point. Yeah. So, Clemson secondary is I think they have. At one point in the year, they had their struggles. They had some injury situations going on. They had to run some people in there. I think they're kind of over that now. I think they're playing a little bit better ball overall. They, against South Carolina, they were justifiably criticized for their lack of tackling because when Lenore Sellers was breaking off those long runs, a lot of those tackles were coming from the secondary. They just didn't tackle well.
Sure.
Didn't have that kind of problem, I don't think, as badly against SMU. The problem there was just catching Smith and catching Jennings. They're so fast, But I think the Clemson secondary is really good and has good talent. I think they got guys who are going to play on Sunday or have the chance to play on Sunday in the future. So no reason if they get the proper pressure on the quarterback. Now, as you well know, any quarterback that has time in the pocket can pick apart any secondary, period. There's no secondary that can live forever back there without pressure. And Clemson has showed here of late. I mean, a lot of the runs that Jennings got was because he was pressured out of the backfield. They were in on him, just like with Sellers. People want to praise Sellers for the running, and certainly he did that against Clemson. But a lot of that running was necessitated because he didn't have time in the passing game. The pocket was broken down because Clemson got pressure. So they're certainly capable of pressuring whoever is back there at quarterback and flushing them or getting them on the ground. And of course, that will help their secondary.
Yeah, that's going to be the matchup that is going to be huge if we get it, which is Banks if he plays against Parker. So that's going to be a matchup that you would think we would see. And I'm sure, again, you would guess this is going to be, maybe, I don't know if they'll move Parker around if Banks plays, but the fact is that that's the one. I'm sure the scouts are going to drool over that matchup. Parker's a little younger, of course, but still, that's the kind of matchup that Clemson definitely needs to hopefully take advantage if you're a Clemson fan that Banks doesn't even play. Well, that would be big.
I'll say this, Parker has been, like I said earlier in our conversation, he's been almost unblockable here of late. Go back and look at his video against South Carolina, the SMU game. I'm just trying to think the Pittsburgh game. My gosh, he lived in the backfield. So he has been on a tear, like I said, playing as well as any defensive end in the country right now. So that will be a handful for whoever is out there at tackle and whatever other things that Clemson tries to run at them with twists and turns and whatever kind of junk they'll throw up there on defense. So, yeah, that'll be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, keep in mind, Ewers was sacked 6 times, and that offensive line did not look very good without Banks. So that is going to be a big player injury to keep an eye on as we get closer to the opening whistle. Texas also had 11 penalties and 3 turnovers in the game. Mm-hmm. So that's what Clemson probably would love to see because they've only had 3 penalties in the last 2 games alone. And that South Carolina game, again, even though they didn't win, they're one of the hottest teams in the country, SEC, just like Texas for the season. And that's exactly the type of opponent that should give Clemson confidence that, hey, we matched up with South Carolina well. Here we've got Texas. And I agree with you. That's why 11.5 points is a lot of points in this situation. Whether Clemson wins or loses, it would seem like a nice way. And honestly, I think if Clemson doesn't cover, it's probably going to come down to like a late something weird happens. And but I see this going to down to the last couple of minutes of the game.
And let me throw this out there, since this is the first time we're all going to experience this. Everybody thinks, okay, home field, that's going to be so important. But I wonder sometimes, like the visitor, for them, it's a business trip. They're flying in, staying at the hotel. They're getting up Saturday morning, going to the ballpark and play the game, late on the field. They get back on the plane and come home. The home guys, the home team, this is a playoff. This isn't a regular season situation. And I mean, you just wonder where their edge is. They're going to have, we'll see how everybody reacts. It's not going to be a bowl type atmosphere.
No.
But it is going to be a playoff game, championship game type home atmosphere. But
which we've never seen before.
Is that going to be more of a distraction for the home guys or not? While the visitors are like, just going in there, doing our job and getting out of there. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what kind of attitude and the approach that the home team has versus the visiting team in all 4 venues on Saturday and Friday and Saturday.
And that'll be a good indication with the Friday night game at Notre Dame just before we get the games on Saturday. So we'll see how Notre Dame handles, which also should look, there's going to be pressure on the home team. No question about it. So I'm sure most of these home teams will want to get off to a good start. They want to get off to, it'll alleviate some pressure being at home and so forth. Well, as Clemson being on the road would like nothing better than to see them hanging around or even with the lead at the end of the first quarter at Texas. I think that's the way Clemson stays in this game for 4 quarters and possibly pulls off the upset.
Here's the other thing, too, real quick before I let you go.
Sure.
Think about it. I mean, you got to take care of your business. You got to take care of your business at hand. But the winner knows that Arizona State is waiting. And, I mean, nobody really respects Arizona State from the standpoint of being any kind of a power.
No,
If you're Clemson, you get to play in Atlanta in the Peach Bowl. So, I mean, Clemson's got
good
that
point.
carrot dangling. Like, in other words, guys, if we can go win this, we got a darn good chance of getting to the semifinals in this thing at the least.
Yes.
And then you get to the semifinals, anything can happen.
Yep.
So, but you got to take care of business first. First things first, and that's going on the road and getting a win over an SEC team, a team that was ranked number 1 for several weeks this year.
Yeah, one team is going to get to these semifinals that I don't think most people expect. I don't know who specifically that team is going to be. I think if it happens, I think it can be a team that plays in the first round. So that would mean one of the road teams. And I think Clemson definitely qualifies. Now, whether they could be that team, I guess we'll find out. Before I let you go, I should have asked you when you were going over this. So Maffa injury, Haynes not playing. Who steps up? Who can step up? Is there a player on the roster, whether he's a redshirt freshman, a true freshman even? Is there someone that could step up and surprise and maybe give Clemson a shot in the arm?
Well, if you're talking about from the running back position, really don't know of anybody. Keith Adams Jr. would be probably the next in line. After him, or maybe with him, is a young player, a freshman named, I'm going to butcher the name, David Easy Uomi. But neither has played a significant role. So it'd be a great unknown. I think you're going to see, assuming Maffa can play, I think you're going to see Maffa out there. And maybe, I hate to use the word decoy, but his presence means you got to respect him. Yeah. But you kind of have him as at least a decoy to give you some semblance of a running game look, a running game threat. But the running game will come, if that's the situation, the running game will probably come from Klubnik off the passing game.
Yeah.
Predetermined calls and scrambles. And he's very good at that.
Yeah.
He's obviously very, very good at that. You give him a sliver of grass and he'll take it. And then his throwing game, like I said, he's been greatly overlooked in a lot of national conversation. But you look at his numbers, he's now thrown 33 touchdowns, I think it is, to just a handful of interceptions. I mean, his numbers and his completion percentage is pretty good. So, and he's playing, of course, in his hometown. And he's playing where he played his last high school game in the state championships.
Oh,
in that stadium. Yeah, he is from Austin. What's also interesting is one of the stars in the Texas secondary is Andrew Makuba, who was a former Clemson Tiger from Austin, Texas. He too is from Austin. He transferred back to Texas. I want to say prior to 2023. So he knows Clemson's ways in and out for whatever that's worth from a Texas standpoint. So
very interesting.
A lot of interesting little interconnections there.
I like it. All right.
Well, Dabo Swinney will tell you the only time he's been in, what do they call it? Royal Stadium. I know it's got a long name there at Texas, but Memorial Stadium, Darrell Royal Memorial. Only time he's been in that stadium was for that state championship game to watch Klubnik.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, good memories then.
Yeah.
And yes, great opportunity for Klubnik because, like you said, I don't think there's a lot of people that are looking at him, especially after they probably watched him. And he did not have a good 2023, very erratic last year. Starts off the season terribly wrong, first chance on national TV, and probably a lot of people forget him. And this might be the first time they've seen him since then. And this is a great opportunity for him to take that next step. Because we'll see. He could be a big part of this team, of course, next season. And I know there are not a lot of great quarterback prospects next year, again, just like this year. So we'll find out whether or not he's got the capability of being one of those guys. And if so, then I think one of those steps would definitely have to occur on Saturday.
Yep.
Phil, I appreciate it.
Thank you,
as
sir.
Always.
My pleasure.
If hopefully, for Clemson fans' sake, we'll talk again in a couple of weeks and not in about 6 months.
Okay.
So Either way, I always appreciate the time, especially since we're doing this on a Sunday. And yes, good luck on Saturday with the high school games, and then of course follow that up with the Clemson football game. Should be a great day for you, and a lot of Clemson fans, and a lot of football fans in the state of South Carolina.
Yep, looking forward to it. Thank you as always. Anytime you need me, just give me a shout or shoot me a link.
Will do, Phil. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Thank you.